We begin with some breaking news we are following. U.S. President Donald Trump made good on his promise to charge a 10% global tariff, saying just moments ago that he signed an executive order to bring that into effect. Trump posting on Truth Social to say, "It is my great honor to have just signed from the Oval Office a global 10% tariff on all countries, which will be effective almost immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump." Now, this comes despite the ruling, where most tariffs remain in place for Canada, including on steel and aluminum, cars and lumber. Trump is calling the decision a disgrace.
When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long.
The news is already drawing plenty of reaction this side of the border. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc said on social media that the decision reinforces that the tariffs are unjustified, but says critical work lies ahead to support businesses and workers affected by steel, aluminum and auto tariffs. Joining me now is Honorable Shira Scheindlin, U.S. Attorney and former judge of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. Ma'am, good evening and thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
This judgment was long awaited, ma'am. Did you anticipate this outcome?
Oh, I did. If anybody had listened to the oral argument several months ago, it was very, very clear that this was going to be struck down. Remember that the lower courts had already said that what he did was unconstitutional. It violates Article 1 of the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, which says that it is up to Congress. Congress has the power of the purse. Congress is in charge of taxation, not the executive branch. So everybody anticipated that this would be the outcome.
Ma'am, the president had, in his press conference today, as we heard, he attacked those members of the judiciary who were not supporting him. He had some words to say for them. Your reaction to all that we heard from President Trump towards the bench?
Very, very upsetting, very disappointing. It is disrespectful to call members of the United States Supreme Court fools. And the words that he has used to describe them is terrible. He said they should be ashamed of themselves. Their families should be embarrassed. I think there was another word beside fool, but it's disrespectful. These are co-equal branches of government, and he just came out and attacked these judges. He said they were affected by foreign influences.
Yes.
I don't know what he's talking about. It doesn't make a bit of sense to me. These 6 justices, 3 of whom were appointed by Democratic presidents, 3 of whom were appointed by Republican presidents, two of whom were appointed by Donald J. Trump. I mean, they studied the Constitution. Frankly, any first-year law student who also has read the Constitution knew the outcome, because Article 1 says, and I'm sorry to repeat, the taxing power lies with Congress, not the president. And those 6 justices just didn't buy his argument that this was about the national security was so important, it was an emergency. They said nonsense, nonsense. He had not the power to do this.
Okay.
So this is a very important case about separation of powers. Sorry, go ahead.
No, certainly, ma'am. But I want to talk about this case and the ruling a little more, because there are some questions that remain which we haven't got answers to in terms of what happens to all the revenue that has been collected so far. What happens next, and how the president can continue to impose more tariffs under several other sections, as we know. I mean, he's clear about imposing more tariffs with a vengeance now.
Well, okay, you asked 2 different questions.
Yes.
First of all, what happens with all those $170 billion? The answer to that is that they sent it back to the lower court. They sent it back to the lower court, which means they didn't decide what to do about the money, what to do about refunds. They left that for somebody else to figure out. So they kind of ducked that issue, which means there's going to be a further delay while the lower court hears argument, hears briefs from the government, from the plaintiffs, and has to come to a conclusion as to what to do. But that's the amount of money at stake, $170 billion.
Yeah.
And if I were predicting, there's going to have to be refunds here, and somehow it's going to have to be worked out. It can't be 0. So that was one question you asked. Then you asked, what can he do with a vengeance? Well, he's already said, I'm issuing an executive order imposing 10% global tariffs on everybody. Now, that's going to be challenged by, I would guess, by Monday. There'll be challenges to that, to his executive order, and that's going to have to work its way through the courts. But the first court may very well say unconstitutional, and then somebody's going to run to the Supreme Court and see if that order is going to be stayed or whether these 10% tariffs will be struck down. So I can't predict the outcome of that. I don't even know under what authority he did it, other than to say it's an executive order and I'm just doing it. But the rest of the various statutes that would allow him to impose tariffs, they take time. They take agencies of the government to do an investigation, write a report. They're very deliberative. So he can't just do what he did before and say one day 25%, one day 50%. He just can't do that.
Can I ask you simply, ma'am, for people who are watching, because this is, of course, is extremely complicated how it all happens, and right? But tariff being used as a tool of economic warfare for the next 3 years in his tenure, do you think that will continue, or do you see that coming to an end anytime soon because of all these legal challenges you mentioned?
Well, as I said, there are other ways for the executive to impose tariffs, but it does take some time.
Right.
So he can ask the Commerce Department and other departments, the Trade Office, to do investigations and report, and then he can impose tariffs. But every time he does, it's going to be challenged in court now, and it could tie him up. So we just don't know whether he can continue to use this, as you called it, economic warfare around the world. Yeah. It's unclear. But today's opinion is very, very strong.
Yeah, so the uncertainty actually continues when it comes to him using tariffs as a tool. Okay, we leave it at that tonight. Honorable Shira Scheindlin, U.S. Attorney and former judge of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time tonight.
My pleasure.